Welcome aboard! We will be your guides during this magical journey into the movies. It's the perfect job for us because we love the movies. It's showtime! Ready when you are, CB!
Action!
Welcome to Monoreel Radio, episode number 350. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are here this week to review and discuss Under Wraps 2, the 2022 sequel to the remake of Under Wraps, which we discussed last week. Last week, we walked away from Under Wraps saying, hey, this was quite a bit of fun. Upon the second and third viewing, we pulled a little bit more and a little bit more that we liked. My concern at the time was, I'm sort of wondering how you can set the sequel up, but I personally was excited to see if they could pull it off.
I was also interested to see what they were going to do when this is one of those rare DCOMs that gets a sequel that's not a musical. Like, they do it with Halloween Town, but when you think about like these legacy DCOMs that we have now, the ones that get third and fourth movies, those are all musicals.
Right. So, I think at this point, we should just get into it. Was this film as good as the first? Should it be turned into a trilogy? That, on top of many other things, is what we are here to discuss today.
This episode is sponsored by Fierce Fox Co., designers of handmade silkscreen shirts. Fierce Fox has a t-shirt, tank top, hoodie, or crew neck for every fandom. So whether it's the movies or theme parks, princesses or villains, the MCU or Star Wars, everyone will find something they love. The designs range from subtle quotes from our favorite films to iconic characters we can wear proudly in so many different styles, such as sketchbook and concert tees. Listeners of Monoreel Radio can get a 20% discount using the code Monoreel at checkout. Visit fiercefoxco.com to check out all of the collections.
1 year later, Marshall, Gilbert, and Amy are still hanging out. However, Marshall is feeling on the outs, and he's missing Harold. They prepare for the weekend as Amy's dad and his fiancé Carl are getting married that weekend on Halloween. They are also planning to visit Harold and Rose and wake them once again. Meanwhile, at a different museum, Harold's nemesis Zobek is awoken and takes a museum curator captive to help him find Rose, his long-lost love. They must also find his staff to unlock his powers. Our trio learns of the missing mummy and fears that someone may steal their friends, especially when they learn Zobek's backstory, that he was in love with Rose, he was formerly Harold's best friend, etc., and so forth. With Buzzy as their chaperone, they leave for the Halloween-loving town of Rockport for the wedding. Upon retrieving the wedding rings, the jeweler tells them that the jewel on Zobek's neck is called the Red Jasper, and nothing good comes of it. It is nothing but trouble. They believe that Zobek was awakened, not stolen, so they decide to sneak into the museum to wake Harold and Rose immediately. They use moonlight to wake them and replace them with mannequins and leave the museum with them. Meanwhile, Zobek steals his staff from a private collector. That night, Marshall confides in Harold how he's recently been left out of Amy and Gilbert's activities. Gilbert is now doing a lot with the school paper, and he's vlogging under the handle Gutsy Gilbert. The next day, they go to decorate for the wedding and leave the mummies unattended despite Marshall's hesitation. After ordering room service, Rose convinces Harold to leave to go to the Halloween festival in town. Our group learns that Zobek is en route to Rockport, so they go back to the room and see that Harold and Rose are missing, upsetting Marshall. Harold and Rose have fun at the festival. Marshall, Amy, Gilbert, and Buzzy find them, but unfortunately so does Zobek. They narrowly escape, however, Amy drops her father's wedding rings, which the curator finds and decides to use to their advantage, so the next day they threaten the jeweler into giving up the location of our friends. At the wedding's shocktail party, they use Harold and Rose as waiters to keep an eye on them. Zobek arrives, steals Rose, and chocolate-covered chaos ensues when a chocolate fountain is knocked over.
That was very nicely put.
Yeah. Amy is upset as she feels that she has ruined the wedding, while Marshall is upset and vents that he feels left out and ignored by his friends. Zobek and the curator take Rose to a warehouse that they plan to make into a tomb where they can spend the afterlife together. The next day, our trio talks through their differences and reconciles. They track down the museum warehouse where Zobek is holding Rose. They wake Rose, however, Zobek wakes 2 mummy guards to destroy them. Gilbert destroys the guards while Marshall, Amy, and Gilbert use shields to destroy the staff and the red jasper. 45 minutes later, they attend the Hallow wedding with the rings in tow, and that night they say goodbye to Harold and Rose, who go back to sleep in their coffins.
So this opening reset, this immediately goes back to what I just said about it's not a musical. If this was a musical, this would be the opening number where we're getting caught up with where these characters are now.
Right.
I actually like how they handled this. I don't normally go for the voiceover, but because they did it sort of reality TV style where you have Marshall speaking and then it goes to a sound up with the character, you know, sort of backing up what he just said. I actually thought that it worked just to get us back into it. Not as strong and open as the first one, as far as the fake out. I love this corn maze. I totally believe now that these kids are a little bit older, that this is what they're doing, especially now that Gilbert has found that chutzpah after the first one. So I'll buy into that. It's just the reveal. There is no haunted anything. House, corn maze, I don't care where it is. And maybe this has nothing to do with me being spoiled by Halloween Horror Nights. Nowhere is just going to turn the lights on like this.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I wish they had just commit to the kids actually being scared because it was so good. These costumes are great.
Yeah.
The masks are great. It's well lit. The set is unbelievable. And then it's like, lights on. I got to go work my other shift. That took me right out of it.
Yeah. It was, okay, we're closed now. Well, you wouldn't have let anybody else in the maze if you were going to close.
Thank you. Thank you.
This opening voiceover, I know you like how they handled it. To me, this just feels like a very special episode of ... Because as Marshall is giving you the backstory as to what happened to them the year prior, they conveniently gloss over a lot of details because they're going to basically undo most of what they did in the first movie in service of making a second movie, which is the one thing I cannot stand in forced sequels. We see this specifically on 90s television all of the time, where they'll like introduce like the new wacky neighbor and the audience didn't like it after 3 episodes and then he's gone and you never see him again.
Or
and
like
we just forget that he was there.
How many siblings Sean Hunter had on Boy Meets World
Exactly.
that we never see again until they introduce Matthew Lawrence's character as a new sibling.
Right. This happens all of the time in television shows, and it's kind of forgivable then. But when you're basing an entire film and an entire story off of certain elements, you kind of need to run with them. Specifically, the setup for this entire weekend is just dreadful. You made such a big deal in the first movie, right? Of having Amy have Step Dave. They literally gave him a name.
Oh my God, they did. I didn't even catch that.
They literally made the entire thing because as Marshall is dealing with his mother finding a new boyfriend, Ted, who he wasn't really jiving with, it was a big deal that Amy could relate.
Right.
But she eventually accepts Step Dave and they have such a great relationship. So within a year, I guess her father's divorced again, has found Carl, gotten engaged, and is now getting married again. Especially because, like, they really went out on a limb in representation to say, you know, I have a stepdad with my father, Step Dave and I get along great. And it's just kind of like, remember that really charming thing that we did, especially because we could bridge the gap with her and Marshall? Forget any of that happened because we have to have a Halloween wedding in Rockport.
Are we sure, though, that Step Dave was not the partner of the father that she lives with? or that was always
so are
the couple
you
in
implying?
Rockport.
Are you implying that this is her other father now getting remarried?
I'm saying both are remarried. So Step Dave
possible.
could be living in the home with her. Let's give her father a little bit of credit. Maybe he's not gone through 2 marriages here.
So now, so in other words, you're saying her other father is now on his second marriage. I mean, it's possible, but the problem is, you have to tell us that. Otherwise, it just feels like you've rewritten her backstory in service of having a wedding that you could have just as easily done with Marshall's mom and Ted.
Thank you. There it is. See, I don't want to gloss over the good thing that they're doing with the representation here.
Right.
Because my issue is not with the gay marriage at all. It's just that in the first, I'm always going to put story first, right? We spent so much time with Marshall's story arc accepting Ted into the family. Ted, who is a Halloween nut job.
Yes.
So I also would believe much more that they would want the Hallow wedding. And it would also be such a more natural progression with the conflict that they're trying to create here, that Gilbert and Amy are getting closer and Marshall is feeling on the outs.
Right.
Because then Marshall could have been so tied up with, I have to help with this wedding. And this is really, I need to pull this off without a hitch and make it perfect because I sort of need to make this up to Ted. I really want Ted to feel welcome in my life. And then Amy and Gilbert are now annoyed with him because he's stepping away. Mr. Video Expert, which we have also set up in the first one, but now that's Gilbert. And also to your point, we had plenty of time to explain all of this because once again, we are standing here in the middle of a cool set, just cutting back and forth between talking heads with absolutely no movement. That's how we get all of this exposition that they're going on this Rockport trip. I also would have been fine if we abandoned the idea of the wedding entirely and it was just, hey guys, I really want to take you up to Rockport to meet my dads or my dad and stepdad because Rockport does such a big Halloween extravaganza. You guys would love it. And oh, by the way, Harold's exhibit is going to be up there so we can pop in. I would have bought that so much more than we're going up there for a wedding when we're children and we can't even drive. So we're going to need a chaperone, but we got Buzzy back in. So that kind of works. And now having this, it feels so forced that Harold is there too. Just pick one thing and run with it.
Well, that feels forced. Even Buzzy feels forced. I'm glad we got her back. I think we needed her back. But again, my question was, like, I'm asking too many questions in the first 5 minutes. Who is getting married? Where is Step Dave? Why is it that, because I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, why is it that her father is meeting all of these people for the first time at his wedding when they have been friends for a year? So why is it that Buzzy is the chaperone and not Marshall's mom? Spoiler, it's because then you didn't have to pay 2 more actors to come back is really what it was. It was budgetary. But this is where you went from having a well-written film to an okay-ish written sitcom in the 90s, and that's why you just rolled off your back with it and went, whatever.
I agree. There were so many natural paths that they could have taken, and I feel like we reached, not just for the sake of doing the sequel, but for also making it bigger. And to this film's credit, the sets are infinitely better than the first one. Like, you can see it's bigger budget. They really went for it. And sort of with any sequel, that's what happens. They always take it on the road. So I get it. I definitely get it. But story-wise, this just could have been a lot tighter because there were some breadcrumb trails that you could have very easily picked up. Speaking of reaching for things, the meatball sub. Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's bad. The fact that he's able to just shove that entire display a good 3 feet
Yep.
to get the meatball that rolled underneath and then still eats it, in and of itself is alarming. I don't know why this thing with food became a runner with this character. It doesn't really work that he's food obsessed. And also, notice how I called him the curator. Notice how I call him this character. They never tell us what his name is.
I was actually just going to say that it's Larry. He introduces himself at the end right before he gets the invite to the wedding. But they don't reveal that name until the last probably 5 to 7 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, here where we meet the character, we don't have a name for him.
So what you do is you have him move this very, very heavy display by himself with no wheels, by the way, just to get the meatball in service of putting Zobek into the moonlight so that the moon can trigger the red jasper. I'm fine with the moon triggering the red jasper.
By accident.
By
sure.
accident. Totally makes sense. Totally a mistake. I buy that. And at least it's carrying over from the original film, right? But there are so many things that he could have done. There are so many things that he could have moved, that he could have knocked over, that he could have misplaced, that could have directed that moonlight to the red jasper.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a mirror. It could have been a shield. It could have been anything. But instead, they just have him move this entire display. It's completely unbelievable.
Well, I mean, they do the mirror trick later on, but that also could have been a really good plant if they're going to keep going with these movies, because now you have to be careful how you set up these displays, because at one point or another, anything could be waking up because of the way that moonlight's hitting it.
It could have been like aluminum foil from the sandwich. He could have put that down, and that could have reflected the moonlight.
I would have been fine with that, because this meatball sub is just so silly, even by DCOM standards. And I mean, I've had some good meatball subs. Like I get the travesty of dropping one, but this was just so much of a reach. And the entire time I'm sitting there going, "You're gonna sit in the sauce. You're gonna sit in the sauce." And then the mummy comes alive, and I'm like, "You're gonna step in the sauce." Like, somebody get the sauce. I had so much anxiety watching it. To your point, though, the food runner too. That's Harold's thing. We don't need two foodies. It is so much. But anyway, let's not spend too much more time here.
Well, I do want to call one more thing, though.
Oh, all right, go for it.
We've seen this twice before with the artifact that comes to life and takes the curator. We saw it in Ghostbusters 2 with Janosch.
Of course.
But specifically, when he takes the bracelet off and he puts it on his victim, which is fine because that's how he can control him. And it's not just mind control. So for a prop, I'm fine with it. We just saw this exact same thing play out in Space Invaders with Vern and Captain Bipto. So we've already seen this whole thing where I'm going to put an article on you and it's just going to take you over, and it's going to be my way of having a mind control device on you. So, I mean, it's fine that he takes the curator, even though it's Janosch. It's fine that he puts the prop on his wrist, even though it's Vern. But we've seen this already. So...
Yeah, but I think if they had gone straight for the scepter, which they do eventually steal, then it would have read too much like Jafar. You know, like Space Invaders and Ghostbusters, they're not okay, Space Invaders, it's a touchstone, but I don't think your mind immediately jumps there the way it would when you're watching a DCOM thinking, oh my God, one of the most popular animated films of all time. It's going to read more naturally as Jafar. And then you don't get that really hokey joke about the staff, that he needs a staff.
And you also don't get the entire plot of the movie spoken to you.
These movies
you are going to go and get the love of your life. You're going to steal her back from your arch nemesis who took her from you in death. I'm here for you.
Also in one static shot. I'm sorry, these movies are so poorly directed.
So, yeah, we're less than 10 minutes in, and all of this already feels way too forced.
Well, honestly, though, most of my critique is in the setup because of all of these changes. And, I don't actually have too much about the rest of the movie because it is a lot of Halloween fun, but this is just a lot to have to sort of pivot based on what was set up in the first one. So now they sort of start to double down on the conflict of Marshall feeling left out because we see Amy and Gilbert in the newsroom. This is after they establish that they have a secret handshake, that they have named Harold's girlfriend as Rose and left Marshall out of it. So, there's a lot of teenage poutiness happening. And now they're in the edit room. I love that we get to see this scene. I love that they're, showing this to kids, that this could be something that they're doing as early as middle school or high school if your school is fortunate enough to have the equipment. I'm very curious, is this what goes on at the school paper now? It's all about content. It's not this is even infiltrated into schools as far as
probably
print medium can't just be print medium. You have to have content to back it up. I still wish that Gutsy Gilbert was a column. I wish he was writing it with Amy because they did so much with and it was something we really praised about the first one, that Marshall is the filmmaker.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't lend to this conflict that they're trying to set up. And then, they really double down on it on the car ride up to Rockport. I really appreciate the hearse driving shots. We get to see some fall foliage.
Yeah.
Even though, like we said, Buzzy chaperoning this trip is kind of a stretch. And then we learn about the love triangle with Sobek, Harold, and Rose. Set up.
Yep.
Set up.
Awful lot of information on this website that we're just reading in the car.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. All while we are trapped in this car with very limited editing options.
Yeah. But once we get to Rockport, what a great set this is.
It really is. It's so cool. And this is where I wish we just had a little piece from Amy of I'm so excited to take you to my home. Just independent of this wedding, I'm so excited to get you guys here because you love Halloween so much.
Right. And
this is what we do in our town, but on steroids.
Yeah. Totally fine with all of that. And I'm fine with introducing the idea of this red jasper that they go to pick up the wedding rings. They're in a coffin-shaped box because they're really playing into the Halloween of it all. And they get the backstory of this gem from the jeweler because this is just what he does for a living.
Fun little cameo with the jeweler here. This is Adam Wiley, who is from I know him best from Gilmore Girls, but he is in the 1997 original Under Wraps.
Yeah. So to set up the cameo, it works. To get a little backstory on the red jasper, that's fine too. But then again, we're in the museum because now we've learned what the red jasper is.
And we have to wake them up to stop Sobek.
To stop him. We're not in the same museum that we were in the first film, yet it amazingly looks exactly the same.
And that has nothing to do with the traveling exhibit and everything to do with the building.
Yeah. Either they reused the old one or they just found one that looked way too much like the original and said, we'll go with it.
But, Buzzy is completely different with, the New York accent to break in.
Yeah, and fancy that, a museum full of priceless artifacts and not a single security camera. But we got flashlights.
I will give them this. They did sort of cover the tracks with mentioning the curator of the exhibit and duping the security guard because they had her name. So it's all right, future investigative journalist, you did your homework here.
Right. So I'm fine with them stealing the mummies to wake them up and putting dummies in their place just as a placeholder.
That was kind of fun.
That was fun. But here's what I don't understand. I was under the impression in the first film that when you woke them, You had 3 days to get them back together and back in the coffin, or else they turned to dust.
Right.
So they had 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Are you implying that the window is eternal and it's just a 3-day window that we have to get them back? Because why are we able to just go wake them up again at our leisure?
Right. Because with that train of thought, if Marshall feels like he misses his best friend, he could wake him up every 3 days.
Right. Now, we can't break into a museum every 3 days, but I thought that, like, this was a one-and-done power, so I guess that's to imply that we can just do this whenever we want, as long as they're back in their coffins next to each other side by side within 72 hours.
I really hadn't considered that. Yeah, no, it's a totally fair point. Because it's a loophole, you know, like
Yeah.
It does negate everything about the first one and the stakes that you set up. I guess why I didn't catch it either is because I was so distracted by once they get woken up, we're all signing to each other as if we couldn't communicate in the first, you know, we have to go to bed, and they're doing the sleepy signal as if you're laying on your head. Like, why? Through a series of grunts, you were able to communicate and understand Harold the entire time the first time.
Right. And they just hit you with, like, oh, we got to hit the sack. Oh, yeah, we could get some shut-eye. Like, it's just like, take the most cliched phrases to imply that you're going to go to sleep and just use all of them at once. All in service of what? So we get a scene where Marshall can't sleep. So Harold wakes up. He orders room service pizza because that's Harold's favorite is pizza. And he makes sure that he's got the hot sauce for him. And I'm fine with that. Let that carry over. That's all well and good. Also that he can communicate with her. To your point, he can speak to Harold.
Mm-hmm.
Because he gives Harold the entire backstory of what's been going on for the last year and why he feels left out of his friendship circle. And Harold is there to comfort him. It's a great scene.
It's charming. It's a really good little breather for sure.
But to the point you made just a moment ago, are we able to talk to them or not? Do we have to hand signal every single thing that we do with them, or do they understand us?
Right.
So there's just some inconsistency here. But the thing that happens that we knew was going to happen was when they go, we have to go decorate for the wedding, and Marshall says, well, I don't want to leave them here by themselves. And they go, they're in a hotel room. What could possibly happen?
This is the payoff that Harold saw Marshall order the pizza.
Yes.
Because now Harold and Rose totally Kevin McAllister the room service. Which is just, it's never addressed that this costs money.
Nope.
And it's never, I assumed that this is being billed to a wedding tab somewhere. Because even though you're spending a fortune having your wedding weekend at this venue, they're not comping your guest room service.
No.
No way. There was easily $900 spent on pizza here.
You spent $967 on room service?
Exactly. I want to talk about the venue too, where they're at.
Yeah, sure.
I am almost 1,000% sure that the interior that they're shooting in is none other than the same as the Descendants location.
I think you're right.
I think they used a different exterior because they were shooting on location for the town scenes. But the interior, I'll recognize that paneling, that wooden staircase anywhere because they also used it for Royce Cotillion in Gilmore Girls. I gotta look up the name of it because I always forget it. But yeah, it's Descendants, and you can really see that in their quote unquote hotel rooms. It's the dormitories.
Yeah, the Karloff Hotel. Nice
Yes.
little hat tip there.
Exactly.
But yeah, we knew that they were going to go missing, and we knew that this was going to be the set Marshall off moment because they've set it up that we're going to have a conflict between Amy, Gilbert, and Marshall. We know he's going to blow up because he feels like he's not being listened to, because he feels like he's being left out, because we're watching them sort of back burner him, whether it be because they're decorating for the wedding, which Amy has an excuse, or Gilbert, while he's decorating for the wedding, going, oh wow, I have to take a selfie. This would look great on the Gutsy Gilbert feed. Okay, and like, oh yeah, what were you saying again? Like, that was fine. I think Amy has more of an excuse, but like, you know it's going to build to this moment, and of course it pays off.
What I bump on with Amy's excuse a little bit, though, is she keeps saying, you know, I'm a kid. I don't have the money to send them on a honeymoon. Where did you get the money to throw a cocktail hour with a chocolate fountain?
I'm guessing that they just gave her a budget and she ran with it.
But also that's where it doesn't add up, because how are you doing this when you're not there to buy everything or talk to the venue or, you know, it's not like you're working with a wedding planner, at least not one that we see, but maybe we'll let that go. Now our mummies are missing.
Yep.
And obviously you knew this was going to happen. I love that we get this date night between Harold and Rose. I thought this was so cute because, you know, this is where they don't lean into it too much. It's just enough where they're sort of playing for comedy the time traveling aspect, like we brought up last week. It's not just that they are reanimated, it's that they're in a totally different time. They don't know technology. So it was really sweet that they were able to just go out and be a normal couple for the night and experience a date night that they'd never had before.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a charming scene for sure. The only thing I didn't care for here is this Dance Dance Revolution thing, because it's very clear that they wanted to one-up the dance scene from the first film where it was just Harold.
Exactly.
And now you have both of them. And it's nothing against the actors. I mean, the physical comedy and the acrobatics and the choreography, everything that they do, because at one point in the wedding, when they're waiting, they're juggling, and yeah, some of that's CGI, but some of it, they are really doing these tricks. They're phenomenal. That's not the problem. The thing is, you just had to shoehorn a dance scene because you did it in the first movie, and you did what? You relied on a video game that was popular 20 years ago.
And this isn't even the actual video game. It's just to light up floors. I think that they did graphic design for what you're seeing on the screen. And then those are just like light up dance floors the way that you'd have them, you know, at a wedding venue or something. This is not the actual game because it didn't make sense where they were having them step. But when you put that aside, it's actually a really great scene. I mean, these two shred this dance floor. And not only to your point with the physical comedy, as far as like still having those like very stiff mummy movements, which work with the choreography, and then like you really loosen up and do some cool moves. I buy them as a couple, the way that they feed off of each other too. So I think it's a really good scene for that. The only thing that I bump on a little bit is that like when you have these wedding weekends, where's the rest of your cast? Like these are normally group activities. So like we could have had a little bit of a fun cat and mouse of like, how are we going to conceal these two from my dad's or just something like that, where the rest of the wedding party is there, especially because this is also the trap that they laid. We spent so much time getting to know Marshall's mom and Ted, even though Marshall's mom still doesn't have a name. We're building to this wedding for characters that we should care about because we're going to celebrate them, but we're not getting really enough time with them. The other thing about this scene, this song that they're dancing to is a bop. It just stood out to me so much. My Kind of Monster.
Yeah.
And what stood out was I was like, I think that's Malachi Barton singing. And then I heard the rap and I was like, oh, wow. I wonder if this was like cut from Zombies or something and they recycled it. But it is our main cast singing. It is the three of them doing it.
It's the best thing about the movie, frankly.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, unless maybe I just missed it. I'm wondering like if they released like a music video or something where we actually see them singing like for promo or whatever. But like this could have been a lot of fun if they had done it as like a standalone.
Right. Now they use this as... This scene is used as a vehicle for having Zobek arrive, He's tracked them down. They're in public. They need to escape. And Zobek also gets to see how much fun Rose and Harold are having, and it sets him off. I'm good with all of that. Where this comes crumbling down, though, is the fact that Amy made such a big deal about having to guard these rings with her life. Why are you just carrying them with you everywhere? Why aren't you leaving them in a hotel safe?
You don't need to do that in the literal sense. I've never known anybody that was in charge of the rings, or even the couple that was carrying them around until the wedding day. You put them somewhere safe until you need them. This is how they get lost. However, this is where it was totally worth it to scrap Marshall's mom and Ted, because the rings do become so important in the third act, as far as what they represent, not only to Amy's dads, but also for Harold and Rose. But we're going to unpack that more once we get there, because I really do not want to gloss over this shocktail hour and the epic chocolate fountain disaster.
Yeah. Before we get to the chocolate fountain, though, I do want to point out that this entire time, Marshall has not wanted to leave Harold and Rose alone.
Right.
He hasn't wanted them by themselves. You are now going into the shocktail hour. You can't miss that part of the wedding. So you have to bring them with you. So they conveniently have two waiters not show up, so we can conveniently put Harold and Rose in the role doing cotton candy and popcorn. What I don't like about this, Marshall gets exactly what he wants, in that they will have eyes on them and they are not leaving them alone, and he's still being petty about it.
Yeah, the pouting and temper tantrums in this movie are they just feel very childish. I would have bought it in the first movie when they were a little bit younger, but now that these kids are clearly aging up, it does feel very dumbed down.
And he wasn't childish at all in the first movie either.
Yeah.
So it seems like you've sort of regressed this character slightly.
A lot. No, I agree with that. I think they really set him back a couple of notches.
Chocolate-covered chaos. Let's get into it.
This is why I said you phrased that really nicely. That was very generous of you. I mean, you knew this was going to happen, right? I'll forgive it. It's a decom. We have to have like a big over-the-top sight gag. And I'm not being critical of just doing something like this when we grew up on slime. You know, I'm all for, you know, that was our comedy. It was people being covered in food. It's just the way that we go about this. You know, these chocolate fountains, and maybe you can speak to this more than I can, Mr. Food and Beverage. In order to keep the chocolate melted, it's got to be hot.
Yep.
Amy should have third-degree burns and be leaving out. She should look like Harold.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was number one. Then it's the, I'll save you. Whoop, down he goes. Mike, whoop, down he goes.
And then the whoopee cushion. Just standing there and whoop, down he goes, just so you can get the whoopee cushion sound effect.
The whole thing was ridiculous. I really thought it was going to be more of a human chain and be so over the top, where the more people tried to help, the more they got pulled in. And then I sort of would have bought that, because then everybody, you know, maybe then you do have a little like chocolate food fight, except you can't because it's burning.
Yeah.
And like, then Amy's reaction would be totally justified of, I ruined your wedding, when everybody's physically hurt.
Yeah. Instead, you get a scene where she's very upset. Understandably so. Her dad and, you know, Carl, they're trying to make her feel better. I think it's a big moment for them
Mm.
that they could be furious by the whole thing, but they feel so bad for her that they're putting their big day secondary to how she feels. I think it's a great moment for those two characters, but it's all in service of having this scene where Marshall just starts to rip into Gilbert, and Amy, quote unquote, hears them through the door.
Right.
No, you are shouting at him. So it's not like you didn't eavesdrop and hear it by accident. You just heard somebody shouting at somebody else from the other room through a door.
Exactly. There is a payoff, though, as far as Amy and her dad's. Like, the Gilbert Marshall of it all is resolved rather quickly. And, I mean, there's no really deep lesson to be learned there because, actually, I think this is pretty realistic because sometimes if you're hurt by your friend, they might not even know how crappy they're treating you until you do spell it out. So, like, the fact that they squash that kind of quickly, like, I do actually buy it. But because we are living in a movie here, there was a little bit more that they probably could have done with it and a little bit more of a takeaway. Instead, we do get a good lesson from Amy. Temper tantrum aside, I think it is important to show a character like this who is very much type A and strives to be a perfectionist what happens when things go awry, because she is really beating herself up. And that is so relatable to what kids deal with today when they feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders and they're being pressured by, you know, their schoolwork and their home life and their friends. It just gets to be so much. And a lot of times they don't know how to cope with it when they can't be in control of a situation because they're just so used to having to be go, go, go. There's no time to address things when they go off the rails. So to have this beat and see everything fall apart on her and have her dads pull her aside and be like, look, we don't care about having the perfect wedding. We care that you invested so much into it that there was so much of that stress on you and you shouldn't be feeling that. So you get that really, really good moment. And this is where the rings also come back into play. And again, like I said, it was worth scrapping Marshall's mom and Ted's wedding for this moment when they remind her that, yes, the rings are symbolic, but like up until a couple of years prior, they couldn't even get married.
Right.
And the point is that they're able to have this wedding. And I thought that was so beautifully done.
Yes.
And I was shocked to even find myself thinking, wow, that was really beautifully written in a film like this.
Yeah.
It makes up for so much of the clunkier setup.
Sure.
Because you have this really great, meaningful payoff here.
And then on the heels of that, you've got the curator, as they're getting ready to set up this warehouse, that they're going to have a tomb, and I'm going to put a box around it where you'll never be found again.
Where even are you?
Yeah, we don't even know where they are until later, but I swear to God, his lines are straight out of Saturday morning cartoons. Those rotten kids. We had this until those rotten kids, like Scooby-Doo.
It's a Scooby. Yeah.
And how many times did he have to say, "Your sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance"?
No.
Just, like, coming off of something like that, meaning what you just talked about with her father's, you know, having the conversation about how they couldn't have been married just a few years earlier. Having such an incredible scene like that, and then, oh, those dastardly kids, your sworn enemy.
It's like a smash cut into it.
It's terrible.
No, and it has nothing to do with even the character being under mind control. And I would have bought that more if he wasn't speaking clearly or if he sounded like he was speaking from another time, because Sobek is.
Yeah.
So if this is Sobek's voice being channeled through Larry, I'd be totally fine with that. But yeah, it's just I need to be your number one sidekick here.
Yeah.
It just didn't really work.
Honestly, it feels like the lines that are written for the sidekicks in Teen Beach, which is intentionally a parody.
Yes.
Right? Another great line, though, that you get as the three of them reconcile, this is Amy, Gilbert, and Marshall. Marshall says, "I'm sorry I said this to you, but I meant what I said."
Yeah.
So it's like, that's so well written, and I think that's so relatable, where it's like, I'm sorry I said what I said and I hurt your feelings, but that doesn't mean that what I said isn't fair or true to me.
Stand on it, yeah.
I actually loved that they wrote this in.
And again,
you had to give Marshall, you had to step him back up to where he was in the first film, because you've already had him step back in this film. So he's basically just an even wash at this point. So no growth for him.
But again, though, this is where it feels very real. It's, Gilbert and Amy didn't do anything horrible. They didn't lie. They didn't deceive him. They didn't betray him in any way. So it's just Marshall spoke his piece. They acknowledged what they were doing wrong, and they said they'll do better. And then you move on with your life, and you don't hold it against your friends. And that's how friendships continue down the line, because you're effectively communicating. If it was a bigger issue, if they had really done something to hurt him, well, then you got a decision to make when you call them out.
So now we get to our climax where we're going to rescue Rose in the warehouse.
No, we're not. We're just going to stand there watching as things happen and not react to them again.
We've got 2 more mummies. Don't know where they came from. We just stole 2 more because they're so easy to find. And apparently they're really easy to steal.
An abundance of mummies.
Yeah. So that happens. But then you have Zobek talking through Larry, and the performance from the actor who plays Larry, and we'll talk about our cast in a few minutes, his performance here, in concert with the performance of Zobek, is so good, because they're moving and emoting at the exact same time in the exact same way. So you can see that Zobek is talking through Larry. I wish they would have done this the entire time. Why did you save it for this moment? You could have done this the entire time, and it would have been so much better, and Larry would have been a much more interesting character, and so would Zobek, frankly. It
would also support the idea that Larry doesn't have a name. He's just this nameless, faceless vessel for Zobek.
Right, exactly. But instead, we have more mummies now, and then you have a very abrupt finish where Gilbert kills the 2 mummy guards by swinging on a moon that is basically turned into a wrecking ball that is hanging in storage.
Again, where are we?
We're in a museum warehouse, apparently. That's where they were going to go do all of this. So that happens, and then they use shields to block the laser that shoots out of the staff, and they redirect the firepower back to the red Jasper to destroy it and destroy Zobek's powers. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's a callback to what they did with the mirrors to bring them back to life. That I'm fine with.
But when they're telling Gilbert how great he is and how brave he was, he goes, "I'm not gutsy. I was scared." And they're like, "Well, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not gutsy. You still did it." And he's kind of like, "Yeah, I did." So it's like you're sitting there saying, as you're walking up this ladder, you're saying, "Be gutsy, be gutsy, be gutsy." The fact that you climbed the ladder, jumped onto this big moon, and then cut the cable to fall a good 20 feet, whether you're scared or not, you were gutsy for doing it. So to sit there and say, "I'm not gutsy at all," makes no sense. I'm glad that they were there to kind of talk him off of that, but it just felt like we need to show that Gilbert's actually still scared sometimes.
But that was the whole lesson that he learned in the first one.
Correct.
Is, yes, I'm scared, but I'm more scared of losing you.
And I can still do brave things.
Yes. And sometimes, it's like he learned that the ends justify the means. It's, you know, if being brave doesn't mean that you're not scared, it means that you're scared and you have to step up anyway, which is what they explained to him, but it's also what he learned in the first one. This is just a lot of retreading, but it didn't bother me so much because I was so bothered by, you know, we have like a 1-to-1 ratio of characters again that are not interacting with each other. We've got 3-on-1 while the other 3 are standing there watching.
Yeah.
It's just not shot well.
And then it's goodbye again.
Well, wait, let's not gloss over the wedding ceremony because on the way back,
oh, that's right, because the wedding's in 45 minutes. We gotta go.
Exactly. But Amy explains, because Larry gives her the rings.
Yes.
Because he found them. And then he gets an invite to the wedding. We've just learned his
Naturally.
name and he gets to be a guest now. But he needs a suit because he hasn't showered in 5 days. Come on, Sobek. Give him his own agency at least to clean himself. My goodness. So on the ride back, Amy explains the symbolism of the rings to Harold and Rose. And then during the wedding ceremony, again, which I thought was really bold of Disney to show the whole ceremony play out, especially when you're, you know, in the major theatrical releases like Lightyear and Strange World, they sort of really like tiptoed around things.
Right.
And, you know, they dealt with a lot of backlash as a result because they gave you just enough, but like they never fully commit to it. I love that they commit to it here.
And isn't it funny that there was no controversy about this one?
None. So I love that they're cutting Carl and Mike's ceremony against Harold and Rose. She motions to Buzzy for her earrings. And I just thought that was so sweet because, you know, again, they've learned something from present day. And it's also Rose's way for a character that hasn't communicated vocally or verbally this entire time that it was always you, Harold. It was never Sobek, even though, you know, he did this elaborate thing to try and get me to spend eternity with him. I choose you.
Right.
This was beautifully shot. It was beautifully edited. Hats off to the art department for this wedding and this party. You know, fall weddings are such a thing. It kind of starts to feel like you've seen it all, done it all. But like, I love the black and white costumes, the black and white decor, but with the pops of like, not even gold. It's like a burnt orange with the pumpkins. I thought it was so gorgeous.
Yeah, it looked great. I mean, the sets in totality were very, very strong. And then goodbye again.
Oh, no.
Oh, there's
We're not
more?
going to gloss over this. Yes, it's goodbye again. And everybody says their goodbye and they each have a moment and it's very, very sweet. And then Marshall goes to say goodbye to Harold and he starts to say something and then it's, oh, Harold. And I really like Malachi Barton, and we said that he did such a great job in the first one. Except, I mean, I was a little critical of his line delivery, but now I'm going to be a lot critical of this line delivery. And I don't think it's him. I think, again, this goes back to direction. It was so dramatic. So dramatic. Just finish the thought. And then if you want to have a breakdown, like, we all know what you're feeling. We all know that this is going to be difficult to say goodbye, but also this negates all the progress that you've made by speaking your mind about your circle of friends. You have Amy and Gilbert. It's not like you're going to be, and there's nothing romantic about it. So it's not like you're going to be third wheeling with them. Harold's leaving you in just a fine place. Your life is not falling apart without it. It was just so over the top for the moment. He's allowed to be upset, but like, it just, Harold, and throwing himself on him, it just didn't work for me at all.
And we've also learned that you can just bring them back whenever you want. So what difference does it make?
Yeah, see you in 3 days.
Yeah. All right, let's start talking about our new cast members, seeing as we just talked about our existing cast last week. We'll start with Rila McIntosh, who plays Rose, as far as stunt work, she's phenomenal.
She's unreal.
She's on par with Phil Wright. I mean, she's really, really good.
I think she actually outshone him. I mean, we really gave him his flowers for the physical comedy in the first one, but she rose to the occasion, no pun intended, and there were times where my eyes just kept going to her for the physical, especially like what I was talking about with the date night, you know, like they're just out and it was always like reaching for his hand or so. Like I just bought them as a couple, but I feel like a lot of that was her being drawn to him. Just so well done.
TJ Storm played Sobek. I thought he was good. He was imposing. I mean, he's done a lot with the MCU. He's a stunt actor. But for a character that doesn't speak at all, I thought he was an imposing threat. I thought that he was a worthy villain.
I agree. You know, and I like that we had that puppet master element in this one. I also really like that they did the facial reconstruction on the computer screen. I thought that was a nice touch because that's been something that I think in the year since the first one came out, we've been seeing a lot more of lately in real life. So I like that they brought it in here.
Jordan Conley plays Larry. And I'll tell you, my issue is not with Jordan Conley. My issue with this character is how the character is written. And I do believe that the way he delivers his lines, to your point, I think it's just poor direction. Because when he gets taken over by Sobek and starts to really let them have it in the warehouse, he's excellent. And the chemistry they have together is excellent. Any issue we had with the character is independent of him and solely on the writing and direction.
Especially when, you know, he's got to carry so much weight in the beginning before Sobek comes to life. And he's, you know, it's very see and say when he was going through the motions with the meatball sub. And, you know, what else can you do? He's by himself.
Right.
You're not going to have him silent the entire time. But, yeah, I think the clunkiness of this character goes back to the writing and direction because he definitely proved that he could have the chops for the physical elements of the role. And I agree with you. It would have been so much better if they had just done, like I said, the puppet master and like really leaned into that the entire time.
Claude Knowlton and Antonio Cayone play Pop and Carl. Mike and Carl. I like them. I thought that they were great. I thought that their chemistry was believable. I loved the relationship they did have with Amy. I felt that they very much grounded the film.
I couldn't agree with you more, except for the clunky chocolate fountain catastrophe, which again, probably not their fault. The no whoop.
Yeah.
That's not their fault. But I wish we had a little bit more time with them. Like, for example, at the Rockport Festival, just like a quick beat of like a, you know, like a group activity so that it feels more earned when they are parenting Amy. It's still an amazing scene. It's such a great moment. And we do get to know the characters most in that scene.
Yeah.
But it just would have been nice to have like a little bit more of a build because other than that, the only other beat we get is when they're meeting Marshall and Gilbert and Buzzy for the first time.
Right. Final thoughts on Under Wraps 2. I'll go first today. Ignore everything we did in the first in service of a sequel. That's really what this was about. This was sort of what I feared walking into it. It's a sequel for the sake of. I thought that we left these characters in a great place in the first movie. I think while it was great to see Gutsy Gilbert, and while it was great to see that he and Amy are growing closer in a non-romantic way, that also has created a wedge with Marshall. While I think that works, I just think that these characters, by and large, are coming off as petty. I think the sets are phenomenal. I think the costumes were really good. But I think that the undoing what we did in service of a sequel just feels cheap. So that makes the movie feel cheap. I do think that the direction and the writing was a problem because I think that we just got a lot of really cheesy, hokey, corny dialogue. And I understand it's a DCOM. It's made for kids. It's something families can enjoy. I think this is a movie you could sit and watch as a family, and if you have little ones, they're going to enjoy it. But I feel like if you're over the age of 10, you're probably not going to get a lot out of this, whereas I think you would have gotten a lot out of the first film. Should it be a trilogy? No, because I don't know that we need to see this rehashed again. They've obviously left the door open, but to my knowledge, there's no future film, especially because I think Malachi Barton is being sort of the heir to the throne with zombies, so I think that's sort of the direction he's going in, and I think that's a good place for him to go. But yeah, this was compared to the first one, I would say that this was a letdown.
I agree with pretty much everything that you said, but it dawned on me as you were speaking. I think that the biggest story problems, it was when you said everything with the kids seemed very petty. There were so many great moments with the secondary cast, like Harold, Rose, and Sobek, and with Pop and Carl. You didn't spend enough time with all of them, and instead you spent too much time on the kids. So the issues and the conflicts with the kids felt very forced, and I think that's where your pettiness came from. And then as a result, you regress the characters and the arcs that they earned in the first one. So I feel like if the A and B conflicts lent more to each other, it wouldn't have felt like two separate things were going on. And then those really good character moments, they just would have felt more earned, more natural, as opposed to sort of having to shoehorn this growing pains coming of age element just for the sake that you have teenage kids in the movie. And I think that's it. And I think I had kind of mentioned this before. It's that the kids are aging up, but their conflicts are not aging up with them. And that's where this feels very petty, with the I'm jealous and feeling left out. To a point where I almost wish that maybe there was a romantic element that did parallel Sobek, Harold, and Rose, and, you know, whether it was Marshall, whether it was Gilbert. I mean, would fighting over Amy feel cheap and petty? Yes, a little bit, but then to have it parallel what was going on with the mummies, I think it would have just felt more cohesive overall.
We want to know what you have to say about Under Wraps 2. You can let us know on all forms of social media at Monoreel Radio, or you can email us monoreelradio@gmail.com. News of the week is coming up, but first a quick break. Now that we live in Florida and spend a lot more time in Disney World, you know that we love to share our park experiences with you, especially in our dockside chats. However, telling you about our personal experience during a park day while sipping on a margarita is not the same thing as getting travel advice from a professional, which is why you should reach out to Jackie when planning your next vacation. Her assistance is complimentary, and I promise she can tell you a lot more than where to find the best margaritas. Visit kmvtravel.com/Jackie to join us in sunny Florida. Cheers! Taylor Swift obviously making headlines this week with the new album being released recently, but we also have some Disney news tied to Taylor Swift.
You know, she was hinting that something else was coming. So this was interesting. I was kind of surprised by it. Obviously, Disney made the Eras Tour record-breaking, available for streaming. So they're going to do the same with her last show of the Eras Tour. So I thought they were just going to maybe stream it again, but instead this time what they're doing is a 6-part docuseries. So we're going to get a lot more behind the scenes, a lot more of a look into the production of it all. So I actually think that that's really cool, especially because, you know, so many young girls look up to her. So to be able to see the actual work that goes in, and to see, you know, if you idolize Taylor in that way and you're inspired by her, to see all of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. Maybe you don't want to be a singer-songwriter like she is, but like, if you love the tour that much, this is a great, this is going back to the roots of edutainment. This is a great glimpse into what goes on to put a show together. And, hopefully that does inspire some career paths, because, event production, that's a huge thing. And it's something that fortunately is going to be protected from AI, because you can't really, that's not something that's replaceable when you have people building stages and sets like this.
Disneyland is getting something that we are very excited about. I wish we were getting it here, but perhaps we get something similar in the future. Gordon Ramsay at the Carnaby is coming, a 60s style sort of British gastro pub with all of the pub favorites, is going to go to downtown Disney. I think that's a great spot for it. I would love to eventually see something like that.
Same. I was so stoked when I saw this headline, especially because he's got restaurants like at, I think, Caesars. So I figured maybe he was coming to one of the hotels, and then I saw Downtown Disney, and I was like, oh, man, but we love us some Gordon Ramsay. So if this is just like dipping our toe in the water to see how it works, like, yes, please come to the East Coast.
Yeah. A lot of news coming out of Walt Disney World this week, starting with the Muppets taking over Rock and Roller Coaster. We knew that was happening. They are going to have the ride reopened, rethemed by quote-unquote summer of 2026, which I used to assume meant Memorial Day weekend, get it ready for, the start of the travel season where the kids are out of school. It probably means they'll reopen it at the end of July, because that sort of just seems to be the date. It's in that third or fourth week of July anytime they tell us quote-unquote summer of 2026. But that's coming. They just haven't announced a closing date for Aerosmith yet.
But, we're getting closer. We're narrowing it down.
Right. If you are looking to plan a Walt Disney World vacation for next year, they are now booking through the end of 2026. And they did offer more promotions, which I think, coming off of what we know about how attendance has been down this year, I think that that's important, that for the tail end of next year, if you are staying on property, you can get free dining for kids, but it's kids ages 3 through 9 if you've purchased a dining plan for the adults traveling in the party.
Exactly. That is an existing promotion that they've been running, but it is really valuable. If you have kids that do want to do a sit down meal, like if you want to do even one character dining meal, it's so worth it for a dining plan. But even the quick service ones are really good. Like if you are a family that's on the go and you don't want to spend time, if you want to invest your time more into the rides and attractions, it's still a great way to save some time, especially, and obviously money with the quick service dining plan.
Yeah. And something else, parks related and attraction related. We are getting upgraded animatronics. This is all over the internet right now. Over at Frozen.
Finally.
Frozen Ever After is getting the upgraded animatronics. Based on what we've seen, I mean, they look pretty outstanding.
It's just so funny that when they started doing the face projections on things like Buzz Lightyear, how amazing it looked. And it was so, like revolutionary with the technology, and we thought it was so great. But then when they do things like Rise of the Resistance, and you see how great animatronics can be, and then the more obvious thing is where they put the really good animatronics in Arendelle in Tokyo.
Yeah.
We were like, wow, ours are looking pretty rough in comparison. So I'm glad that they're doing it's not going to be a cheap endeavor, but it's a worthwhile investment to do this minor upgrade.
Right. And they're giving you something to look forward to. They're putting some work into the parks. Something else that's become a hot button topic this week is that the prices are increasing at Walt Disney World. The annual pass price is going up about $100 a year on average. It's between about 80 to 90, 80 to 100, sort of depending on what level of pass you have. Look, operating costs are going up, and like this is the tug of war. On the one hand, I go, well, your attendance is down, so I understand raising the prices is a way of offsetting your loss, but that's not a way of incentivizing us to return. But the thing is, and a lot of people don't realize this, Florida is now $14 an hour minimum wage, going up to $15 an hour next year. Every year they're seeing a $1 increase until they get to that $15 an hour minimum wage. So when you think about the sort of operation that Walt Disney World is, when you have to give a $1, and I know people go, well, it's Disney, they're $1 billion company, what's an extra dollar an hour?
It adds up.
It adds up
It
when
adds
you
up
think
real
about
quick.
the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of employees that they have. And frankly, I think sometimes people forget when you say, well, we need to make more money to make a livable wage. It's like, true story. But understand something. In certain instances, you can make a more livable wage, but you're getting closer to a break-even scenario because the cost of everything else is going to go up. The grocery store that now has to pay, let's say that you've got 40 people working in a grocery store every hour. It could be more. I'm making it up. It's $40 an hour additional to operate. Most grocery stores are open, what, 12 to 15 hours a day? You're talking about another $1,000 a day on average just to open your doors?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they're going to make that money up, folks? They're not just going to take it on the chin and go, I'm happy you made more money. They're going to offset their losses by trickling it down to the consumer. So I understand people are upset, but there is a bigger picture here, and I can't really put the blame on Disney for raising prices when the cost of operation is going up.
I, of course, understand why they did it, but this is a little bit, it seems, in poor taste, because if attendance is down, you're going to need to rely on your APs to be in those parks spending their money. So to rake them over the coals by increasing the price to get in, it just, I mean, yes, it's basic supply and demand, but it just doesn't seem like the best way to go about this. And I'm not saying that they should raise prices overall, because that's going to happen with food and beverage anyway. It just, you know, it's a little bit off-putting that they know that they're going to need to rely on the APs to get them through these times, because we've seen it before.
Yeah.
So it feels a little exploitative.
The only thing that they've done this week that I don't support, I cannot stand places that do this. Cashless. Now, it's not everything at Walt Disney World. It's just the food and beverage carts have gone cashless. They say it's for the safety of the cast members. Baloney. It's so that you don't have to count a cash drawer. It's so that you don't have to sit there and spend more time on the clock counting a safe and running the risk that a drawer is short. That's what it's about. I hate cashless society. I hate cashless arenas. I hate cashless ball games. I should be able to walk into any place I want with American currency and spend it. I understand, but I'm on private property. They can do whatever they want. I understand that, but this is a telltale sign, folks. Eventually, and maybe it means more to me because I work in the food and beverage industry. I walk with cash. I like to pay with cash. I don't like to put things on plastic.
Stop saying you carry cash. If people see us in the park, quiet.
I don't carry a lot of it, but I carry it. I just like being able to, like, there has become an over-reliance on just put it on plastic. Just put it on plastic. Because then it's not real, which is what these businesses want you to do anyway. I cannot stand this idea of a cashless society.
But it just goes back to what you said before, is if minimum wage is going up, that's, probably a good 15 minutes to a half hour you're saving counting draws at the end of the night.
Right, per location.
Yeah.
So That's what I really think that it's about. But it is worth noting because you may have to plan accordingly when you go to a park on vacation. And mind you, it doesn't necessarily have to be your credit card. You know, you could just as easily take your cash, go into a Disney store or into any location that sells Disney gift cards, and you could just load up a Disney gift card because those they are accepting at any of those locations.
No, and that would really behoove the consumer to do that, because a lot of times places like Costco, or I think even Target was doing it for a while too, where if you spend $100 on a gift card, they'll give you a bonus 25.
Right.
So that is a place where you can actually make out on the deal.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us this and every week on Monoreel Radio. Monoreel Radio will always be free, but there are many ways that you can support the show. Please give us a rating wherever you listen to your podcast. Join the conversation on social media at Monoreel Radio on all major platforms. Share your favorite episodes with family and friends who may enjoy them. And of course, book your next trip with Jackie. Links to everything can be found at monoreelradio.com. We all get one story. Make yours a magical one.
On behalf of Monoreel Radio, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the movies, the stuff dreams are made of.